Welcome back to this next lecture. Now we want to take a closer look to the so-called baked lighting using Lightmass. In the previous lectures we did plenty of stuff regarding the dynamic global illumination, which is, you already know, you might have guessed it, the lumen. And lumen also with the hybrid approach using the ray traced technology. But baked lighting is pretty important and also pretty necessary for you to understand and also to learn and how to apply that. Because I believe some of the students purchasing this course, they don't only focus on like creating cinematics with perfect ray traced shadows and all that stuff and ray traced GI, but we have some indie game artists, like indie game developers, and performance is pretty important. So I just want to like finish this course also with like game optimization. And if I just crank everything up to like high ray traced shadows and high resolution and TSR on top of it and everything is perfect, this is nice, this is good for having cinematics and render shots and all that stuff. I want to give you like the knowledge and all the tools you need to know on how to apply baked lighting, and also show you like the technical background behind baked lighting, so you can look at the light map density, what is light map basically, and how can you adjust the resolution behind that so you have proper resolution, which is not too high and also not too low, because you really need to find a good resolution for every single mesh inside your scene. I will just show you all the technical perspective behind that. So, but you have to understand that now we just said goodbye to the Lumen GI, so our real-time dynamic global illumination. So this means our directional light as a direct light source, and also our skylight or HDRI as our indirect lighting, which is all dynamic. So we can switch the light, we can rotate, we can transform the light to like a different location. It's all fine, it's all real time. In terms of like you have a game, most of the stuff, not everything, but most of the stuff is not really dynamic. Okay, of course, when you have in a game, you have a flashlight, you're walking around, you have like this type of silent hill game, you have a flashlight. Of course, this needs to be dynamic. So you just have to understand that now baked lighting is, by using Lightmass, is a standard, or like the traditional method, I should say not standard, but traditional method, which pre-computes the GI into so-called light maps. And those light maps, as it already states, a map, it is a texture-based data. And it's stored on all our surfaces. So no matter if it's landscape, if it's furniture, foliage, everything. Like every surface of our assets or 3D objects, they have like a light map which is not really visible for us. So it's like an invisible map, but it's always there once we enable the baked lighting, the Lightmass plugin. Then we do need to consider that we have a light map, and the resolution is something we always have to adjust and to see that we get enough resolution to bake our diffused lighting and also our diffused shadows on those surfaces. Okay, so the lower the light map resolution, I should say, the more blurry and more edgy the shadow is going to look. But we want to have soft shadows, so we need to crank up the resolution, or at least have enough resolution. There were two methods Unreal Engine used. In Unreal Engine 4, I think all pre-Unreal Engine 4.26, everything before that, they had the CPU using the Lightmass, so it was slower, I believe, with the Unreal Engine 4.26. Some students maybe remember. Using Unreal Engine 4, the past 4.26, you might remember they integrated the GPU method for getting faster baking times. So yeah, but before we can use our static lighting method to, like, in terms of optimization, we need to change a couple of things. So we need to go to edit, and we need to make sure when you go to plugins that you enable, so I already did that, but you need to enable the GPU Lightmass, but you can restart later. We also need the HDRI backdrop, because in this case I want to also show you the static skylight. So we will change this also to static, because we are going to illuminate an exterior again by using baked lighting instead of dynamic lighting. So lumen is disabled here. And this is where we go now. So after that, we go to project settings. And on the left-hand side here on the bottom, we do have something called, you might have guessed it, rendering. For the rendering, you can just scroll down, because what's really important is the so-called, let me just search because it's too much for me here, allow static lighting. Please enable this. Okay, next step is nanite needs to be disabled. Nanite is not going to work with baked lighting and using Lightmass plugin. So using light maps and baking shadows on top of nanite meshes is not enabled. Okay, so this is pretty important to know. No nanite. Nanite is always working together with a lumen. Okay, and you have to really check here that your dynamic global illumination method is set to none and not lumen. Okay, you need to change this. As for the reflection method and all that stuff you have here, this is perfectly fine. You can just leave it like so. Just make sure that we use the shadow map method, visual shadow maps. But I think it's by default, as I can remember. And hardware ray tracing, you can just leave it like so. Okay? And then you're good to go. This is basically everything you need to have. Then let me just quickly demonstrate something really quick before we dive into our exterior scene. So let me just quickly get a landscape, just a small landscape of 7 quads. Let me get back to the selection, and really fast I get a window, environment light mixer, and I get the skylight, create direction light, the sky atmosphere, and some clouds and some height fog. And for the height fog, I get some volumetrics enabled. Okay. Since we have now the Lightmass plugin and we want to use baked shadows instead of lumen, real-time dynamic shadows, and global illumination in general, we need to set all our lighting components. All lighting components. We need to change this to static. Exponential height fog also static, sky atmosphere static, skylight static, and volumetric cloud static. Okay? So make sure all your lighting components, also for point lights, spotlight, the HDRI has also the skylight as a subcomponent. We need to make sure everything is set to static. Otherwise, it will not be applied to our baked shadows. Okay. So now let me just get a mesh just to show how this is going to work out. Okay. So we get this mesh here. Doesn't really matter. Let me just place it like so. Maybe then you can see what I'm trying to show. So this side is getting illuminated by our directional light. You can see it's there. So we have strong illumination here, but this is pitch black and the shadow is pitch black because we don't use lumen. So we only have basically indirect light. Okay. Direct light, not really global illumination. So there's no light bouncing off. And this is something we have to bake. Okay. So before we bake, we go to world settings. If you can't find it, go to settings here on the top right hand side, and you can just go and click on world settings, and you will have that here. And I make sure that always before I bake, I search for force, no pre-computed lighting. When you enable this, so this is disabled by default, but when you enable this, he's asking you, yeah, let's remove existing pre-computed lighting. Yes, we want to remove all existing lighting. In this case, there is no baked lighting, but this is just something I want to show you. Every time you rebake, and this is something you have to do, obviously, because when you change something, like you change a light, you switch a light or something, of course you have to rebake. All right, this is pretty important to know. You need to enable this. Force no pre-computed lighting in your world settings. And then you click OK. So this is enabled. And then you go to build. And you want to build lighting only. When you click that, it's pretty fast. But this is just to make sure that all the pre-computed lighting, the pre-computed GI, so which we don't have, of course, but just to show you, is gone. It has been cleared. Okay. Then you can just disable this. It's pretty important that you disable that. Okay. And now we can actually go to build again, and we go to GPU Lightmass. Okay? This is let's set this one back to default. So this is just all default. Let's do a full bake. But before I do a full bake, I want to show you something regarding the resolution. Like I told you something about lightmap UVs, and you have no idea, obviously, what lightmap UVs are. So let me just show you how you can look at it. When you go to lit, you can type in light map density, or you can just Alt 0, okay? So let me just press Alt 0, and then you can see, when I click an empty space, you can see that this one is blue, the landscape is blue, but the door is completely red. So both scenarios are not good. The best thing you can have when you look at your light map density is green. Green means it's perfect. The resolution is not too high. So when it's red, it's way too high. So your baking will take really, really long. But when you have something like really blue, like complete blue, it means, yeah, your baking will be fast because the resolution is so low. But your shadows will be completely, in this case, the shadows, they will not be existent. Okay? So let me just show you. But I want to decrease this shadow here on this mesh. So you have to check every single asset when you build your game or your project. So no matter what you want to do, you have to click on this mesh. So once you click on this mesh inside this light map density visualization, then this turns into pink. But if I click on an empty space, we do know that we have to do something because red is not good. Also blue is not good. And I will show you both reasons. The first reason why red is no bueno is because it's going to take a long time to bake. Even if it's just one asset, it will take 5 minutes. Trust me. So we need to click on this, which is red. We click on this binocular here. So we search the actual mesh because we need to open that one up. Just search for resolution. Our light map resolution is really high. So by default, this was 4, which is really low. So let's crank this one up to 128 for I think for stuff like this, for meshes like those meshes here, 128 is fine. And then just save. Even 64, it depends where you want to have good shadows, or maybe some spots the shadow is not really that visible or maybe not that important. You can just maybe leave it at 64. So those are resolutions which are pretty fine. But of course it depends on your mesh, how complex the mesh is. So when we go back, let me click on empty space. You can see now this is almost green. It's like green, yellow. But you can see this is a lot better now. Okay, so we can even go back if you want to have this perfect. And we can even go and make the resolution to something like, let's say 64. Then maybe it's blue. No, now this is perfect. This is perfect green. And this is how it should be. But now when we just go back to lit, okay, let me just bake again. So I can see I deleted everything. So I cleared everything in the world settings. I show you again. Force, no pre-computed lighting. You click on that. Okay. Build, and you build lighting only. Boom. Then you have this. You removed all your baked lighting. Then you can disable this again. Pretty important. And we go to build again. We open up the GPU Lightmass. And now we disable the real-time viewport. This is pretty important. Disable the real-time viewport and let's build the lighting. So now building the lighting is really fast. You can see it's really fast. Boom. But now we have a problem. You can see that there is shadow, but the shadow is looking like really, really weird. And it's almost non-existent. It just looks pretty weird. The reason why that is because when we go back to our light map density, so here, light map density, it is because our resolution for the landscape is way too low. So we need to crank that one up. So when we click on this landscape, so we're highlighting this, it's pink now. Let's go to the landscape here, and we search also for the resolution, just like we did for our mesh, our door mesh. Now we can see the static lighting resolution is 1. I mean, this is a joke. We need to set this one to 64. Let's try 32 maybe. And now we can see 32 is perfect. Now we can see it's perfectly green. So let's just make sure, let's set this one to 64. Now it's getting yellow, so now it's like he's telling us, like, dude, you have like more than enough already. So it's perfect. Let's just leave it like so. Then we change our visualization to lit, okay? We can see that we do have GI, we do have global illumination, so there's our sun. So we can see this one is lit and we do have some global illumination here. So we need to get rid of this. So in world settings, we do again force no pre-computed lighting. We do that, okay? And we go to build lighting only. Boom. So now we cleared our baked lighting. If I disable this again, then we can go to build and we open up again the GPU Lightmass and we disable the real-time viewport to speed things up and we build again. Now you can see the lighting needs more time to actually build. Now you could say it's like almost 5 times slower, maybe 4 times slower than we had previously. But this is the trade-off. I mean, take your time for the baked lighting. It needs to take some time because you want to have good shadows. You want to have proper shadows, and this is why we need to take care of our light map resolution. Okay, so this is just for you to understand how to prepare your light map resolution and how to actually bake properly. And now let's see how this shadow is going to look. And if this shadow is looking nice, and it doesn't need to look perfect here, it's just a demonstration, but just so you can see like how baked lighting is going to work. And then we can finally do our exterior lighting. Boom. Now you can see the shadows looking a lot better. Yeah. It took some time to load. In the beginning, it's normal that it looks blurry and all that stuff. But now you can see it's nice. It's perfectly fine. If you go really close, of course you can see the density here, the resolution. Of course you can. But yeah, this is basically what you need to do, especially when you're like an indie game developer. Use baked lighting, and you're going to say you're going to have a lot of like performance boost, tremendous amounts of performance boost. So this is what I strongly advise you to do. Always bake your lights when you have a game development. Okay, so now I can show you also what static lighting means, because baked lighting is static lighting. Now this is quite funny, right? You can see the shadow is baked, and when I just move the door, you can see it's not getting illuminated. Okay, you can see like that the light here on the other side of the door is not really going to work. Okay, and even if I just change that here, you can see the lighting, it's baked. Okay, good. So now you understand like everything you need to know on how to do actually baked lighting inside Unreal Engine 5. So what we do now, we open up a new project In this case, I'm using a project which is called the Albert Mansion. I think it's called Post-Apocalyptic Albert Mansion or Albert Manor or something like this. It's a pretty nice scene. I purchased this a long time ago. So right now I think it's pretty expensive, but I was buying that like 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. It was like $30 or something. Yes, I can understand that this is maybe for some people just too expensive just to have this scene and learn inside this scene. It's a really beautiful pack, really good, one of the best packs they have. But feel free to use any exterior project, your own project, a free project, or maybe you want to buy something. It's completely fine. Everything we do here, you can just follow along. You only need Unreal Engine 5 and you're good to go. Okay. So in this case, I will just use this as a demonstration on how to use the baked lighting in a big scene. So let me just open up the mansion environment. No, they do have day and they do have night. But I believe night should be fine because we already did sunshine lighting with Lumen. We did the dystopian scene. We did Archviz, I believe. And now let's do let's do night, a night scene. So let's just recreate this, and I don't need to save this. Okay, so this is the project I already did before, so we will just recreate that. So the original scene, they have tons of spotlights, reflection sphere capture, they have a sky map, like a skybox. They have a direction light, the exponential height fork. So what I did delete here was I deleted like the stationary lights, the point lights, which are like the torch lights. I deleted all that stuff. So I just replaced this, reintroduced this. So let me just delete all that. And I deleted everything regarding lighting. So I deleted the post-process volume. This is just my lighting. This is the reason why I do have my lighting here. So you need to make sure that you get rid of the directional light, exponential height fork, HDRI backdrop, post-process volume. Just delete all that. All artificial lights, spotlight, point light, rectangle lights, reflection sphere capture, local fork volume, exponential height fork, everything which has anything to do with lighting needs to be deleted. Every single thing. Even those point lights I did place here, I will just delete every single thing which has to do with lighting. Okay, this is pretty important. And also like the sky dome or sky box, as I told you already, HDRI, sky atmosphere skylight, exponential height fork, all kinds of post-process volumes. When you read something like volume, get rid of that. Okay, I mean, there's just one tiny example where it's maybe not a good idea, but this is a procedural foliage volume. Of course, this has nothing to do with lighting. Okay, just make sure you have all the meshes and the landscape, but nothing else. Okay, so now I do have my lighting folder, which is empty. And now let's get rid of the previous bake. So because I did this scene already. So this just means that I will just force no pre-computed lighting. Okay. And then I will just go to build and build lighting only. Boom. And everything is gone. Okay. Now, we start by integrating our HDRI so we can actually see what's going on. So let's start by getting our HDRI backdrop. Let's put it inside. Boom, looks already pretty nice, I should say. We just crank this one down. Let's do -1000. Yeah, so we just make sure that this one, yeah, let's just put it here. Why not? So we have that, okay. But pretty small, right? It is pretty small. So let's do 3000. Yeah, this is perfect. And I already have a nice position here. So when you find something you like, maybe you wanna have, just find your sweet spot. depending on what kind of environment you have. Maybe you have this environment. I can strongly advise you because it's a really, really atmospheric scene. So I think it's like the best modular manor or mansion you can get, and it's pretty old, but it's one of the best. I have to say. All right, so this is my sweet spot. So just make sure that you find your sweet spot, okay? And then you can just press Control 1, and then you can find your spot here. And always press 1, and you will snap back to this position, okay? So, boom. And then just save. So what is the next thing we should do? You should get an HDRI, okay? So in this case, an HDRI Polyhaven. What I got, because I want to have like this, I want to have a complete night scene with seeing some stars, just to show you in this lecture some different things. So now we learn not only baked lighting, but also at the same time we learn how to properly illuminate a night scene, what we should do. So I just got I believe the Quantani night. I think this is it. Let me just check. Let me go out here. Content. Yes, I got the Quantani night. When you just get this HDR file, change this MipGen settings to no mipmaps. The texture group can be skybox. It's perfectly fine. And the compression settings, it's also default. So you don't need to really change something here. Preview bias, you can also preview that. But I told you already in the previous lecture, it's just a preview. But we will go for something like that. Okay, and you can see like the light. I think this is like on the other side of a coast or something. It's pretty intense, but it looks interesting. So yeah, we will apply this, okay? So what we have to do, we drag this one inside our HDRI backdrop. Boom. And then at the same time, we click on the skylight and we change the skylight to static. Pretty important. Let's also get the Quantani night HDRI. Let's put this also into the skylight cube map. But, sorry for that, we have to change this to SLS specified cube map. And then we can just get this one here. All right, nice. Then we need the post-process volume. You might have already guessed that. So let me just get the infinite extend unbound, or just crank up the scale to cover everything. I don't really care. What is really mandatory here is that we change the min eve and max eve. In this case, let me just put this one to 8 and 8. This gives me more freedom and overall a better look regarding the skylight. So the post-process volume, let me just move this one to our lighting folder. And also, let's search for the HDRI, right click and move this one to the lighting folder. Then we have things organized. So the HDRI backdrop itself, so the skybox or the cube map, let's crank this one up to 100 maybe, 50, 20, 10. Let's do 10. 15. Let's do 50 for now. And let's crank up the size to something like 5,000. We can also play with the projection here if you want to. Just crank this one like so. I don't like that. But you can also do something like this. Let's do 3,000 or 30, 10, 10,000 should be fine. And let's also rotate that. Let's find a nice spot. So we can see this thing here is, this thing will illuminate our house. So let's leave it here. And we can see like the Milky Way and stuff here, which is pretty neat. And then we go to the skylight and we change the source cube map angle here in our skylight. So let's just make sure, because we should have this illumination in front, because it needs to match with our HDRI backdrop, okay? And we should have I think this looks quite interesting. So now we have that. So we put this one to static again, as well as specify cube map, and just make sure you turn this source cube map angle until the illumination, or like the sun or the moon or the light, is matching also the position of your HDRI backdrop. And you learned already that the skylight cube map here is the same like the HDRI cube map, okay? Good. I cranked this one down to 10. Or I should say I put this one down to 10, from 15 to 10. Size, I told you, is 5000, okay? Projection, in my case, I just cranked this one up a little bit. And so let me just think what we should do next. Let's check the light map density. If I can type density here. Okay, so far it's fine. What we could do is we get those pillars here. Let me just see all those meshes. Yeah, let me just go to asset actions here. And then selection in property matrix. And we search for a resolution. We do have multiple values here, right? So let's just maybe try 64. Save. Okay, so it was already around 64. Let's do 128. Now this looks better. Okay. I just want to make sure that those things here have a little more resolution. And we also have to do that for the foliage. So let me just go, where are the pillars? You know what? Let me just select everything here. Before I do that, let me save. Pretty important because it can crash. Asset actions. So of course, this is something you have to do when you build your scene right from the beginning. This is just to fix some things. Let me just get 128 for everything. Okay, it's not crashing. Okay, perfect. Now it's looking better. But the same thing goes for the foliage, because the foliage will not cast any shadows. I mean, we can leave it, but let me just go here and see. So we go to the property matrix here, we search for a resolution. We set that light map resolution to something like 64. Boom. Yeah, now this looks a lot better. But we still have foliage here, right? So where is that? Those bushes here. And this bush. Okay, so let me just fix those things. I will just go to asset actions again and use the property matrix. So I can change everything at once and we get the resolution. And we see, let's crank this one up to 128. Save. 64, to be honest. It's not going to change anything. But I mean, you can already see how good this looks, and we didn't even bake yet, and we didn't even apply a directional light. So what we only have is the HDRI backdrop with the static skylight using the Polyhaven cube map. But we need to do some things here, right? So let's get the directional light, and we put this one to 200, 100. Let's do 50. And let's find a nice spot which can complement the HDRI basically. I think this is fine. So let's do 10, 100. Let's do 100, but I want to give this, let's also get the exponential height fork. And there it is. Okay, set this exponential height fork to volumetric. So we put this into lighting, direction light. We put this into lighting. And then we go to the exponential height fork. Of course, we enable the volumetrics. Let's crank this up to something like 0.3. Fall off, let's do 1, 2, 1, 1.2, 1.5. 1.4, 1.5. Back to the directional light, okay? I want to change the light color to something like blue. And I want to make it darker. And a little more rich. But not too crazy, something like this maybe. Yeah. Perfect. Soft source, not the soft source angle, the source angle, let's change this to 10. To get nice soft shadows. Not gonna play with the temperature here, I don't like that. Volumetric scattering we can crank up to 2. Indirect lighting we don't really need. Maybe 2. Let's just try. So now this is the difference here. Okay, much better. Now we can take care of the exponential height fork. So previously we had this one 0, 0.5, 1, 1.5. Let's do 1.2. Density, let's do 0.7 even. Then, pretty important with the height fork, scattering distribution. I told you already in the previous lecture, this is always giving us this gradient effect from bottom to top to our direction light. So it's traveling, so like the fork scattering, but I want to focus on the house and not on the sky. So I want to have it, this is maybe too high, this is too low, obviously. So this is nice, I believe. Let's do minus 0.4. Scattering distribution. View distance, let's set this one to 2000. In this case, really something, 3000. Start distance, 200. 2000. 250. So what's the difference between 250? 300 is giving us a small cut here. So everything which is, I told you already, in front, directly in front of our viewport, it's not being affected here. Static lighting scattering intensity. Let's crank this one up. And then we can go back to the directional light, and this is where we can crank up the intensity to make this really pop out. This is already pretty nice. 300. We can even go 300. Let's do 7 source angle, just to be sure that this is not too soft. Let's do 8. And then again, we go back to the exponential height fork. No, sorry. We go back to the light color, and we want to have a slight bluish tint, but darker. Like so. This is just too bright, so we need Let's do like so. And we fix the volumetric intensity. Let's do 3. Indirect. Let's do 5. Okay. And now we can make this night scene a little more interesting if you want. I mean, if you really want to go night scene, feel free to reduce the direction light or to something like really low. So let's maybe do 60. If you really want to have this night scene, okay. In this case, this is perfect for me. And now I can also maybe add some local lights. I believe, from what I remember, they do have torches. I think they have one torch blueprint. If I can type. Yes, they do have the BP torch 01. A and B. For this purpose, let me just see. This looks good, right? So let's search for the blueprint. And there it is, the BP torch 01A and the torch 01AB. Let's do this one here. So when we place this, nothing is really going to happen. So I will just give you a tip what you can do for this environment, but it works for every blueprint. You can open this one up. And I decided to give myself like full freedom. So what I did, let me just delete everything so I can show you what I did. Yeah, let me just delete everything here. So I will just show you step by step here. Don't need that, don't need. So by default, this is the blueprint, the so-called torch blueprint. Now you're wondering like, yeah, what is the blueprint? Why is it? The reason why it's a blueprint is they have a point light inside. So inside this actor blueprint, you can just add any type of light you want. And you want to illuminate this fire, right? So this flame. Now, next to the point light, they have a static mesh. And inside the static mesh, they also have this cascade particle system component. So they made some effects with cascade, which is basically the old version of Niagara. Okay, so you can just create effects like this. But this is the reason why they have a blueprint, because they fuse or they attach the point light to this torch mesh. So this is the mesh, and this is the cascade effect. Okay. So 3 things in one. This is the reason why they use a blueprint. But I want to enhance this blueprint, okay? So what you can do when you click on construction script, in this case, we have the point light, and the point light is already a component automatically once we add this here. So this is already inside our blueprint. This means I can just, when I click on this point light, we do have parameters, intensity, the light color, attenuation radius, source radius, and all that stuff. But we cannot change it here. I can click on, no, actually I cannot even click on the light. So I cannot change anything here inside this blueprint. This is the reason, because I want to be flexible here, or versatile, I can drag out. Let's start by searching intensity. Set intensity, point light, yes, exactly, this is the one. And you can also see the point light is this one here. Okay, you can also just, if you want, just drag and hook it up. In order to change the intensity, I will just show you in a sec how to do that. Next to the intensity, we do need the source radius. Source, not soft, the source radius. Boom, this is important. Then we also need to have the attenuation radius of the point light. This is also something you want to change. And last, but not least is the light color. We want to have maybe like some yellow reddish tint for the torch light to make it more convincing. So now we can use all those 4 parameters for our light, but in order to do this, we need to promote this one to a variable, and we call this one intensity. Okay? This one we promote to a variable and not a local. No, not local variable. Get the hell out of here. Variable. And we call this one just like it already is, source radius, to soften up our shadows. And the third node we need to promote to a variable which is called attenuation radius. And we want to set the light color. So this one is a linear color structure. So click on that and promote to variable. And we call this one light color. Now, in order to have all those things, we need to click on those instance is editable. Okay, so you need to activate instance is editable here. We can compile and save. Now we can see this is basically just a construction script I just did. And now, if I click on this, you can see, nice, we do have the intensity here, source radius, attenuation radius, and light color. So the light color should be something strong, like this. The intensity, let's do, I don't know, 600. But also the soft source radius, not soft source radius, let's do maybe 20. And attenuation radius, let's do 800. Boom, and this is it. Okay, so now we have that, but when we see it from distance, we should maybe get the hell out of here. Let's do 1K200 and intensity also 1200. I think this is better, even 1600. We can even illuminate the wall back there. Let's just find a value which is physically accurate. Something like this is perfectly fine. And then we can crank up the intensity. Let's do 2.2. Yeah. And then let's just alt click those things, okay? And we put the other one here. So the gizmo position is pretty weird, to be honest. But it is how it is. Okay, now we have that. Make this here. Yeah, I don't really care. I just put it here. Perfect. That's perfectly fine for me. So we just want to illuminate a couple of things here. And I want to have a torch over here. Let's see. Yeah, let's just put it there. I think this is not too distractive. And then we can also get this again. Not the stairs, but this guy here. And just support. Just to support certain spots here. And then let's also just alt drag it here. Perfect. Let me get a command here, streaming pool size. I get this one here, streaming pool size, and set this one to 4,000. Boom. Now this is nice. Okay. So what else do we need to illuminate? I think we should put also a light here. Let's just get this one and put it here. Yeah, here. Yep, I think this is fine. And let's also get a point light. I want to have a point light inside those rooms here. So just get a point light. Press G so you can see what's going on. And then put this one here inside. Let's do 50, 80. Let's give it a color. So we also give this a colder color. Okay, just to illuminate what's going on. Just to see what's going on inside. So 150, 120 attenuation. Let's do maybe 180. Yeah. And we get another one. And we put it here. Perfect. I mean, you can place more lights, but I think it's fine. It's perfectly fine. Let's get maybe one more light. Okay. Let's get all 3 point lights and we can just crank this up to something like 240, 500, 600, 1K. Let's do 1,000. Let's do 400, okay? And we get all those point lights, move to lighting. Then we search for the torch and we move to lighting. Perfect. So now let's check the strength, the intensity of those torches. Maybe we should get this to 1.8 and increase the, yeah. So we do have some reflection also here on this water landscape material here. Now let's go to the directional light again. Let's put this one to 400, 240. HDRI again, let's try 20, 10, 5, 1, 2, 5. Yeah, let's do 7. Okay. Directional light again. Let's do 200 is fine. Okay, let's go to the height fog again. Scattering, we need to reduce the scattering for the torches, which we can do. We just need to add scattering, volumetric scattering intensity. Point light. And we promote this to variable. We call this one volumetric scattering intensity. And make this public. So instance is editable. And now let's do 1, 2, 4, 1 by default, right? 1 by default. And more intensity, yes. Okay, attenuation 2K, around 2K. Finally, let's go and set all those lights to static, all those torches. In this case, you open up the blueprint, click on the light and put this one to static, which it is. Perfect. And directional light is static. Height fog static. The skylight of the HDRI is static. Now we can go to the post process and let's do some things. Chromatic aberration. This is just a slight like this drag effect, so you get sucked into the image a little more. So 0.3 is fine. But what about 0.5? I think this is too much. Let's do 0.3. Then we go to the local exposure and we do the shadow contrast. Set this one to 1.5, 1.2, 1.1, 1.2. Highlight threshold. Let's just leave this aside. It's not going to do much. Shadow threshold. Okay, let's do 0.5. Detail strength, let's set this one to 1.2 maybe. I don't like that. Let's do 0.95. And middle gray bias, let's try 1. Let's do 0.5 as well. Let's disable the screen traces here, because in this case you can see, yeah, I think it's better. Quality, let's crank this one up to 4. I think 2 is fine. Ambient occlusion, pretty important. You can see it here, if you don't believe me. Ambient occlusion. And in fact, it has ambient occlusion. Let's do 75. And we go back. The HDRI, let's do 10. Yeah, this is cool. I think this is cool. And then we go back to the skylight here. And we do 10. Intensity, let's leave it at 10. Now we're getting somewhere slowly. Exponential height fork. Let's do 0.75. Also, we need to play with the fall off again. Let's keep this more realistic with the fog here. So we put this one to 1.7. And then you can change different values. Yeah, 1 is fine. View distance, 10,000. 5. 15. 10,000 is perfect, I believe. 12. No, let's leave it at 15. Yeah, okay, this is fine. Now what you can do, again, those torches, we can change the volumetric scattering to something like 1 or 2. In this case, 1 is fine. I like 1 light color. Feel free to also make this maybe a little colder. Okay, I think the color, it's pretty fine. Good, we are almost done. Before we start baking, I go back to the post process. As for the color grading, you should go to midtones and you should always check offset and gain at least. Yeah, okay. We want to increase the gain and we want to crank this one up like so. And shadows, also gain and offset, pretty important. Midtone saturation, we don't need that. Let's save that. And then we can finally bake. So this is pretty easy. We go to World Settings, no pre-computed lighting, yes, build, lighting only. Let's save. And now we can go back. Just disable this. And we want to build with the GPU Lightmass, full bake, show progress bars, compress light maps is fine. Full bake, deactivate real-time viewport, and we build. Okay, so after the baking process, you can see that we do need to adjust some things here. So overall, the global illumination has been baked. Let's just see what happened here. Make sure that you always get this streaming pool size, okay? And you set this to something like 6,000, so then it will fix most of the stuff here. So yeah, but basically this is how it's going to look after the bake. So I got my my lights, everything. You can see as well we need to fix some of those flames here. But if I just move that, you can see the lighting has been baked. Everything has been baked successfully. I will just need to take a closer look to those torches here and might gonna just change a couple of things until we get our flame back. Okay, so for now, just ignore the cascade effect here. It's animated, but we can't really see the textures of this cascade effect. So this is something I need to check inside this project. This is something I will find out, but not now. I just want to show you the lighting here. So it is baked. You can see, so if you want to readjust something, of course, then we need to bake again. If we want to move some lights or increase the strength, so of course we have to bake that. But I mean, it's looking quite nice. We have really soft lighting and everything is settled. I really like that. So just ignore the cascade effect on those torches for now. As I told you, this is something I need to check in detail why those things are not spawning properly right now. But yeah, maybe it's also just a bug. Maybe I just need to restart. We don't know. But they just vanished automatically after the baking process. There's also one more thing I want to do. Go to the post-process volume and go to bloom, because I forgot to change this to convolution and put the intensity to something really high. Yeah. Let's do 7. 6. Let's do 6. And maybe let's get a little bit of more, like a little more height fork. Yes, I want to have this 0.75. And we can increase the directional light. So yeah, I like that. So I just want to have a little more fork, for example. I can just leave the height fall off to something high here. I'm just playing around with those values, but you can see like the final result is already pretty good. Yeah, so you can see like what you can do inside Unreal Engine 5 with just baked lighting. It's a really like color rich and soft vibe I get here. I'm using also the HDRI cube map together with the baked lighting. So yeah, I hope that you like this lecture here, and just keep in mind when you want to change something after your bake, as I told you before you change any of those lights, even if it's just intensity or you want to move some lights or rotate or something, make sure you save before. And then you can maybe just do some small adjustments and then you can bake your light again. So this is basically how it's going to work. And yeah, this is it.